Hi, it's Carol Fitzgerald from readinggroupguides.com, a website from the Book Report Network, and I am so excited to welcome you to our 10th annual Book Group Speed Dating event. 10 years. You know, we're going to start our program with something a little different this time. We're going to do a retrospective of the last 10 years. Yes, we saved all the PowerPoints through the years, and we went through and found 12 titles from each year that we sort of thought were ones that really resonated with readers. So let's take a moment and enjoy this short film. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did putting it together, a real look back. And now, on to our main event. We know that many of you have been with us before, but we also have a lot of new faces in the audience today. So as a result, I want to give some housekeeping notes on what's going on. You'll be hearing from 19 small, medium, and large-sized publishers that have pre-taped their comments about their books and their presentations. So with no further ado, let's get on to the show. We'll do an intermission about halfway through, and I'll be back to say hello then. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Matthew. I am a member of the Knopf Doubleday marketing team, and I am so excited to share with you these 6 titles, which, if they are not on your radar already, they need to be starting now. Up first is Olympus, Texas, which is a big-hearted debut with Technicolor characters and a whole lot of Texas swagger. It tells the story of the Briscoe family, who is once again the talk of their small East Texas town, when prodigal son March returns 2 years after being caught in an affair with his brother's wife. Meanwhile, his father, Peter's own past affairs and indiscretions continue to plague the family. Not least of all is Peter's wife, June, who is growing tired of being the long-suffering spouse. Within days of March's arrival, loyalties will be tested, marriages will be upended, and somebody's going to end up dead. And for all of this book's thoroughly modern family drama and messy dynamics, my favorite part of this book is its wink to classical mythology. You are absolutely going to disappear into this book's pages, and Stacey Swan is for sure a writer to watch. Up next, if you have watched this event previously, you may have seen me discuss Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, and good news, it is finally here. In one storyline, you follow Marion, who is a woman who was rescued from an ocean liner as a baby in 1914. She was raised by her uncle in a fairly Wild West, Montana. After growing up and encountering a pair of barnstorming pilots, Marion herself decides to be a pilot and makes it her goal in life to circumnavigate the globe at its north and south poles. the Great Circle. But she and her plane vanish before she can complete her mission, with only her diary left behind. A century later, we have a second storyline of Hadley Baxter, the down-on-her-luck actress who is tasked to play Marion in a film. We get two characters into vastly different timelines, into vastly different geographies, and we get to watch, with pleasure, how those two collide. Great Circle has already received tons of praise, starred reviews, and J. Courtney Sullivan has said that it is one of the best books she has ever read. Up next is There's a Revolution Outside, My Love, Letters from a Crisis. This is a collection edited by Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Tracy K. Smith and John Freeman, the executive editor of LitHub. Between the COVID-19 pandemic and the historic protests that began last summer and continue through today, we are painfully aware of how we are in an unprecedented and revolutionary time. But this searing anthology gathers letters, poems, reflections, and essays to process and react to the vast changes we have experienced in the past year. It begins with this heart-rending poem by Patricia Smith, which reflects on and grieves the murder of George Floyd, amongst others. And what follows is this kaleidoscope of voices from all over the country, from Layli Long Soldier to Edwidge Danticat, so many beloved authors who in total have brought home 4 Pulitzers, 2 National Book Awards, and several Whitings. I believe that this is a once-in-a-generation piece of literature. This collection is so beautiful and intimate and asks incredibly tough questions about grief, justice, and loss. Next up is the perfectly voiced debut, The Britneys by Brittany Ackerman. Bursting with bittersweet nostalgia, The Britneys is set in the near and dear to me mid-aughts and takes place over the course of one girl's freshman year at prep school. Our narrator is in a not-so-popular clique of 5 girls, all whom happen to be named Brittany. So we follow narrator Brittany as she falls in and out of love with boys, navigates the complicated dynamics of adolescent friendship, and not to mention the complicated dynamics of family relationships. Full disclosure, reading The Britneys will force you to reflect on your own hilariously awkward, possibly cringe, for me it was, teenage years. It so perfectly captures that awkward, embarrassing, excited energy, especially in the 2000s where flat ironing your hair, Brazilian jeans, and choker necklaces were all the rage. So basically, if Stephanie Danler's Sweetbitter and Lori Moore's Who Will Run the Frog Hospital ran away to Florida together and had a baby, that's the Britneys. So for this next book, I have to, pun intended, set the stage. The year is 1969, and the fabled Baleen Island Folk Fest is all abuzz with one name, Jesse Reed. Tall, handsome, soft-spoken, with this one headlining performance, Jesse Reed is poised to tip from rock and roll fame to legend. That is, until his motorcycle crashes on the way to the show. Enter Jane Quinn, a Baleen Island local who, when asked that she and her bandmates play in Jesse Reed's stead, she doesn't believe it. But Jane plants her bare feet on that folk fest main stage and delivers the performance of a lifetime. What follows is a love story, a tumultuous journey through the depths of the music industry, an homage to the 70s that is just so good. Songs in Ursa Major by Emma Brody is shot through with that early 70s music scene. It is inspired by the real-life love affair between James Taylor and Joni Mitchell. If you are a fan of Daisy Jones and the Six, books by Curtis Sittenfeld, Meg Wolitzer, or Emma Straub, this just needs to be next on your list. Songs in Ursa Major is a glittering debut, and I'm so excited for Emma Brody's book to be out in the world. Lastly, but certainly not least, the international bestseller Ghosts by Dolly Alderton is making its way from the UK to the United States. This is a smart, Sexy, laugh out loud romantic comedy about ex-boyfriends, imperfect parents, friends with kids, and a man who disappears the moment he says, "I love you." Our main character, Nina Dean, is not especially bothered that she is single, but when she downloads a dating app, she accomplishes the seemingly impossible. She meets a great guy on the first date. Her date, Max, is handsome, built like a lumberjack. He has floppy long hair and a stable job. And more importantly than that, Nina and Max have chemistry. Their jokes are witty and ironic. They dance together like fools. They both hate sports. But just when it seems like Nina and Max have created an entire universe of inside jokes and romance together, Max ups and ghosts her. Ghosts by Dolly Alderton is a whip-smart, gorgeous novel that explores the fallout from one event to the next. And if you want to know whether or not Nina and Max will see each other again, you're just gonna have to pick up the book for yourself. So, those are 6 fantastic titles I am so glad I had the opportunity to share with you. Happy reading!
Hi, I'm Nicole Jarvis, the Marketing Director at Bloomsbury USA, and today I'm going to talk to you about 6 titles that I think will be perfect for your book clubs. First is Chasing Me to My Grave by Winfred Rembert. Whenever this book came in on acquisitions, we couldn't stop talking about this. Winfred Rembert was born to a family of field laborers in Georgia. As a teen, he joined the civil rights movement. Later, he was arrested fleeing from a demonstration, survived a near lynching at the hands of law enforcement, and spent 7 years in a chain gang. During that time, he met the indomitable Patsy, who would later become his wife. Years later, whenever he was 51, Winfred began to immortalize his youth by painting and drawing it into leather, a skill he learned in prison. Sadly, Winfred passed away this April, but not before we had the chance to get to know him and love him. Chasing Me to My Grave presents his entire body of leatherwork alongside his story. He introduces us to Black life in Cuthbert, Georgia, the place where he first learned of a life outside of the cotton fields. He pays tribute to the vibrant community there and to his wife, Patsy. He shows us the dangers and promises of the civil rights movement and the brutalities of incarceration. Through beautiful prose and painted leather, Chasing Me to My Grave celebrates Black life while giving us a painful and urgent warning about what lies at the heart of American culture and society. Next, we have Real Estate by Deborah Levy. This new memoir from 3-time Booker finalist Levy is gorgeous and exciting. Dwight Garner of the New York Times calls Levy an elliptical genius and always a pleasure to consume. Real Estate concludes her groundbreaking trilogy of living autobiographies with an intimate meditation on what it means to have a home and the specters that reside inside of it. Levy's inventory of possessions, both real and imagined, pushes questions about our cultural understanding of belongings, and the value of a woman's intellectual and personal life. This book is perfect for anyone interested in a smart examination of modern womanhood and is sure to spark conversation. Next is Today a Woman Went Mad in the Supermarket by Hilma Wolitzer. At 90 years old, Hilma Wolitzer has established a reputation of taking mundane people and ordinary events and bringing them into new heights. This is mostly a collection of short stories that were published in the 60s and 70s, along with a new story that brings her characters into the present. In the title story, a person tries to help a woman in the supermarket who seems to have shattered under the expectations of motherhood. There are other vignettes between a narrator and her husband, which are hilarious and heartwarming. We're excited to introduce Hilma to a new generation of readers, showing them her acute wit and domestic grace in her writing. This book is going to be perfect for fans of Elizabeth Strout, Lucia Berlin, and Hilma's daughter, Meg Wolitzer. After the success of Women Talking by Miriam Taves, we at Bloomsbury were so excited to see what Miriam would bring us next, and her new book, Fight Night, did not disappoint. This book, about 3 generations of women, touches on all the cornerstones of what makes people love Miriam: religion, family, and womanhood. This book alternates between the young and precocious Swiv and her irrepressible grandma. Grandma has spent her entire life fighting. Raised with a strict religious upbringing, she first had to fight against those who would take away her joy, her independence. Then she had to fight to accept the ones that she loved who left. Now, with her health failing, she's fighting for her family. Her daughter, partnerless, in the 3rd trimester of her pregnancy, and her granddaughter, 9-year-old precocious Swiv, who has just been suspended from school. Now, cramped in their small Toronto home, Swiv and Grandma are going to write letters that they'll never send, trying to explain their lives. Fight Night is a love letter to mothers and grandmothers and to all the women who have to fight to make their place in this world. Next, we have a nonfiction book. In 2015, Sam Quinones wrote Dreamland about the American opioid epidemic. He became the voice on the subject, and since then has been asked to speak more upon it. And now that's just what he's doing with The Least of Us. As the country has tried to move past the opioid epidemic, Quinones was among the first to realize the dangers that still lay ahead. New kingpins, new synthetic drugs. Worst of all is fentanyl, which is more powerful than morphine and has been laced into cocaine, meth, and marijuana, and has caused tens of thousands of deaths. Quinones has hit the road to try to figure out what we can do. But amid the tattered landscape of despair across America, he also found pockets of hope, places where people were embracing the forgotten and ignored. That's whenever Quinones realized that we are only as strong as our most vulnerable. Book clubs love Sam. After Dreamland, he traveled the country to visit more than 200 different book clubs, and we know that The Least of Us will resonate just as strongly within those communities most affected by the opioid epidemic. Last but not least is a book from another Booker Prize finalist author, Elif Shafak. The Island of Missing Trees is a richly magical novel about belonging and identity, love and trauma, and nature and renewal. This book focuses first on 2 teens who are meeting in the taverna on the island they both call home. It's the only place where they can meet because Kostas, a Greek, and Daphne, a Turk, are not meant to be. There in the taverna, they're hidden under the branches of a fig tree, which has grown through the cavity in the roof. The fig tree witnesses their happy meetings and their sad and surreptitious goodbyes. The fig tree also witnesses whenever the island devolves into war, the capital is reduced to ash and rubble, and the teenagers disappear. Years later, Kostas, a botanist, has returned looking for new samples and also for Daphne. Reunited, they take a clipping of the fig tree in a suitcase bound for London. There, years later, their daughter Ada only has the fig tree in her garden as the sign of a past that is never spoken of. She can use the fig tree to try to uncover the secrets and silence of what was left behind. Elif Shafak is a rock star writer. I've worked on her since 3 Daughters of Eve, and I can't wait for her readers who already know how great she is to read this new book and for new readers to discover her as her star is only rising. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.
Hi, I'm Erin Kotke with Consortium Book Sales and Distribution. We distribute over 125 independent publishers across the world. 6 of those publishers are here today to talk to you about their book club picks. I hope you'll give them a look and a listen, and if anything appeals to you, I hope you'll download a copy or request a physical copy where available. Thanks and enjoy.
Hi, my name is Rory and I work in the publicity department at Haymarket Books. I'm honored to share a little bit about the updated 2nd edition of From Black Lives Matter to Black Liberation, a brilliant book by activist and scholar Keeanga-Yamahtta Taylor. It's a particular honor for me to share this book because I knew Keeanga before she was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, a famous professor at Princeton and a contributor at The New Yorker. We organized together in the fight against foreclosures and evictions here in Chicago in the wake of the 2009 financial crisis. Kinga does the work not just in the classroom, but out in the streets and in activist circles, and she truly is an amazing person. When we first published From Black Lives Matter to Black Liberation in 2015, it was one of the first book-length treatments of what was then a new movement. This summer's uprising and the subsequent development of the movement have confirmed many of the book's core claims. The book is standing the test of time as one of the most essential books to read, not just about the movement, but about making more general sense of the struggle against racism in this country. The book has sold more than 30,000 copies and continues to be one of our best-selling titles, as it is regularly featured on must-read lists. This summer's revival of the movement brought a sense of urgency to reissuing the book as an updated edition with a new chapter. And we're very happy that Angela Davis has agreed to write a foreword explaining the book's significance. Thank you, and if you have any questions about the book, please feel free to email me at rory@haymarketbooks.org. Thanks again.
Hi everybody, Sarah here from Deep Vellum Publishing. We are located in Dallas, Texas, and we are well known for publishing best-selling authors from across the world, both in translation and English originals. Today I bring to you Lone Star by Denmark's Matilda Walter Clark. This book won Best Book of the Year from the Danish Arts Foundation when it came out originally 3 years ago, and now is brought to you in English by 2 award-winning translators. Lone Star follows Matilda's journey after her Danish stepfather dies, and she pushes to reconnect with her American father, who lives in St. Louis. This title follows her rekindled relationship with her father, her family in both the United States and in Denmark, and it explores the wide, often mythologized American landscape through the eyes of someone who's both an insider and an outsider. This one is a work of autobiographical fiction in the great book club ready tradition of Sheila Heti, Karl Ove Knausgaard, and more. It's all about forging and sustaining relationships across continents and culture, travel, and the weird, amazing things that family can provide to a person. This one comes out on June 15th, 2021, so we hope you enjoy.
Hi, I'm Jisoo and I'm calling in from the Feminist Press. Margaret and the Mystery of the Missing Body is a debut novel and coming-of-age story that twists into a genre-bending mystery about gender and selfhood. At 12, Margaret Worms is head detective of the club Girls Can Solve Anything, and she's not at all interested in growing up. But in high school, the club has disbanded, and her friends have abandoned her to chase boys. So Margaret decides to opt out and develops an eating disorder. Landing herself in a treatment center, she finds her path to recovery going sideways as she pursues new mysteries involving a ghost, a hidden passage, but most of all, her vexed relationship with herself. Margaret and the Mystery of the Missing Body reimagines 90s adolescence by mashing up girl group series, choose your own adventures, and Anorexia Chronicles. In some ways, it's a familiar story about a white middle-class girl who detours destructively before finding herself. But Margaret leaves girlhood not just by aging out, but by transitioning to a new gender. The novel is written from the author's own retrospective, transmasculine perspective, and is a tribute to their beloved literary heritage, as well as an attempt to make space for genderqueer and non-binary writers and characters in the literature of a girl. It's a celebration and interrogation of girlhood like no other, and a darkly funny, smart puzzle about what it means to grow up that's a true joy to read.
I'm Robin Mura, senior editor at Blair. Coming in October, we have a great new historical novel, The Gods of Greene County by Mary Elizabeth Pope. After Coralie Harper's brother Buddy is killed by a powerful sheriff in Depression-era rural Arkansas, she struggles to recover from the injustice of his death. But when she begins to spot her dead brother around town almost 20 years later, she wonders, is she clairvoyant, mistaken, or is she losing her mind? This sharp literary novel has 2 mysterious murders, some courtroom drama, and a cast of characters that includes the congregation of a snake-handling church, a judge with a past mistake that haunts him, and Coralie's husband, who tries to balance making a living at the local cotton gin with fighting for his family and Coralie's life. When Coralie ends up in a sanity hearing before the judge, he has to decide both her fate and his own. And what happens next reveals the destructive nature of power, especially his own.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Davies. I'm senior editor for And Other Stories. I'm really delighted to be able to talk to you today about a novel that's one of my favorite things I've worked on in 20 years of publishing. It's called Pity the Beast. It's by Robin McLean. It's a debut novel. We're calling it a mind-melting feminist eco-western, and I know that's a lot of buzzwords, but they're not just buzzwords. That is literally what the book is about. It's about the landscape, and it's about the pettiness of human revenge and hate taking place in a landscape that is obviously changing and will not be the same in 50 years, 100 years after our human concerns have gone. If you can imagine Larry McMurdy and Don Bartolome playing poker in hell, or maybe Joy Williams going after Cormac McCarthy with a Bowie knife, I think this will very much be your jam, and I hope you love it as much as I do.
Hi, I'm Christine Swedowski, Director at World Editions. I'm excited to introduce you to The Tally Stick by Carl Nixon. The Tally Stick is a heart-pounding thriller set in New Zealand's wilderness. A British family moves to New Zealand with their 4 children, but after only 5 days, the family disappears. Up on the highway, the only evidence that they had ever been there were 2 smeared tire tracks in the mud, soon washed away by the rain. 30 years later, the remains of the eldest child are discovered in a remote part of the West Coast, showing that he lived in the wilderness for 4 years. Alongside him are found his brother's watch and what turns out to be a tally stick, a piece of scored wood marking items of debt. Where's the rest of the family? The British aunt of the children tries to find out. This is a page-turner, a story of young siblings surviving under the harshest circumstances, with the landscape and weather of the west coast of New Zealand given a prominent role.
Hi everyone, my name is Randy Chan. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Harlequin Trade Publishing, where we've had a great run of success lately, thanks to all of you. As I shoot this video, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner has been on the New York Times list for 5 weeks. And we have a ton of Indie Next picks recently, such as The Girl from the Channel Islands, Pam Jenoff's recent The Woman with the Blue Star, and Mary Kubica's Local Woman Missing. So today I'm introducing you to our favorite reads for fall 2021, starting with Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian, on sale September the 7th. Never Saw Me Coming is about Chloe, a college freshman who also happens to be a psychopath. Chloe has been registered into a clinical study at the college for other diagnosed psychopaths. There are 6 students on campus being monitored and studied. But each student doesn't know who else is in the clinical study with them. And soon afterwards, bodies start to pile up on campus. Oh, and the clinical study isn't the reason Chloe showed up here in the first place. She has an entirely different agenda of her own. Never Saw Me Coming is creepy. It's like You by Carolyn Kepnes, Taryn Fisher's books like The Wives. If you like the TV show Killing Eve, this is also right up your alley. And there's been some real momentum growing already. A big UK and German book deal, TV series rights were preempted by Universal Studios, and we've had booksellers writing us practically every week. So 4 months from publication, we've already logged a half dozen Indie Next nominations. So if you haven't received a galley yet, just let me know. You don't want to get left behind from all this buzz. The next novel is The Great Glorious Goddamn of It All by Josh Ritter, on sale September 7. And this is a very special novel to us. It is about the bygone world of the American West, featuring lumberjacks and the rise of Prohibition. It's set in Idaho. But it is so much more than that. It's like saying Patrick DeWitt's The Sisters Brothers is just about gold mining. We see Josh Ritter's novel as storytelling at its best. Our own reps compared this novel to the writing of Mark Twain or John Irving. Some of you might remember The Story of Edgar Sawtelle, real modern classics. And the big piece to this is the author himself, Josh Ritter, who is a singer-songwriter, named one of the 10 most exciting artists now by Entertainment Weekly. And his music has been compared with Bruce Springsteen, Woody Guthrie, Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan. But Ritter's influences aren't just musical, they're literary. He grew up on Flannery O'Connor, Philip Roth, Dennis Lehane, and so he's a writer's writer. And when Josh Ritter published his debut novel with Random House, it was called Bright's Passage, and at the time Stephen King wrote in the New York Times that this was the work of a gifted novelist. The Great Glorious Goddamn of It All has become an in-house favorite, and I can't wait for you all to experience this beautiful novel. On to something very different, The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer, on sale September 28. The Matzo Ball is a rom-com about a chronically ill Jewish girl with a secret career as a romance novelist, and she is asked to write a Hanukkah romance. This book is funny, it's unique, it's charming, witty, emotional, it's so well written, and you can't help but fall in love with the quirkiness of the main character, Rachel. It's perfect for fans of Jasmine Guillory, Christina Lauren. It's an own voices story. Jean Meltzer, the author, is Jewish, and she's going to be a great publishing partner for us. She is hilarious, a go-getter. She's already hard at work promoting this book and growing her social channels. For example, she's hit it off with Debbie Maycomber and will be writing a piece for Debbie's magazine soon, and Debbie has already provided a blurb for The Matzo Ball. The next novel is Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger, on sale October the 5th. And you all know and love Lisa. I call her the queen of thrillers. Lisa keeps getting better and better. Last year, we sold 80,000 copies of Confessions on the 745 since last year, which was also an Indie Next pick and a Library Reads pick. And the new novel, Last Girl Ghosted, is about a young woman in New York City who starts dating a new guy she met from an online dating app, until he disappears into thin air. And when she starts to look for him, she falls down a rabbit hole of secrets and lies. We have an ad tagline already. It's "Think twice before you swipe," and we look forward to making this another big bestseller for Lisa Unger. And the next book is Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, on sale October the 12th. This is a sequel to a very quirky book called Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which you voted as an Indie Next pick last year. It was extraordinary. It became an indie bestseller. It was a Library Reads pick. And everyone fell in love with this novel translated from Japanese about a very special cafe in Tokyo, where at a certain time of day, if you sit in a specific spot in the cafe, you'll be transported back in time to any moment in your life of your choosing that you want to revisit and change. Who doesn't want to do that? In Japan, Before the Coffee Gets Cold sold over 1 million copies, and now we have the sequel, Tales from the Cafe, which features 4 new customers to the cafe, and we follow their stories. It is a gift to have this on our list, and if you love the first book, please read The New Galley. It's terrific. And our final book is called Sisters of the Great War by Suzanne Feldman, on sale October 26. It is a World War I novel about 2 American sisters who volunteer at the front in Belgium. It is based on real-life journals from women who did volunteer in World War I. And this novel was sparked when Suzanne, the author, visited the Imperial War Museum in London, and she learned about the forgotten women of World War I. And she thought to herself, what would these women say about a war that's been relayed to us primarily by men's voices? So she set to work, combing through women's journals from that time, and has crafted this harrowing novel that also features an LGBTQ love story. The historical fiction category shows no sign of slowing down, and Sisters of the Great War feels very unique within this category, and we're hoping it will be a runaway bestseller. So this is our list for key fall titles. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your support. Take care.
Welcome to the Hachette Book Group presentation. I am Melissa Nicholas, and I spend my days working on library marketing for Hachette. Joining me in presenting titles are my terrific account marketing colleagues, Elizabeth Vanieri and Allison Powers. We are all delighted to join you for this event, and thanks to Carol and her team for hosting all of us again.
Miseducated.
Growing up, Brandon Fleming was a self-described hoodlum, gang affiliate, a 14-year-old drug dealer who hated everything about school and teachers. When an injury ruined his chances of basketball stardom, he knew he had to find another path. Eventually, he overcame illiteracy and reinvented himself as a scholar. Brandon immersed himself in the work of Black thinkers from the Harlem Renaissance to present day, and eventually found debate, which became the means by which he transformed his life and the lives of others. Teaching underserved kids to be intrusive in places that are not inclusive, eventually at Harvard University, where he was recruited to join the Harvard debate faculty at the age of 26 and is currently making history and champions. This is an honest memoir about resilience, visibility, the power of books and words, the importance of role models, and ultimately overcoming all expectations.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Veneri, and I'll be sharing with you several titles from Little Brown & Company. First up is The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris, which is a profound debut about the unlikely bond between two freedmen and the farmer whose alliance will alter their lives and his forever. In the waning days of the Civil War, brothers Prentice and Landry, freed by the Emancipation Proclamation, seek refuge on the homestead of George Walker and his wife Isabel. The Walkers, racked by the loss of their only son to the war, hire the brothers to work their farm. Parallel to their story runs a forbidden romance between two Confederate soldiers. The young men, recently returned from the war to the town of Old Ox, hold their trysts in the woods. But when their secret is discovered, the resulting chaos, including a murder, unleashes convulsive repercussions on the entire community. With candor and sympathy, Harris creates an unforgettable cast of characters and an epic whose grandeur locates humanity and love amid the most harrowing circumstances. Author Richard Russo said it best when he wrote, "With The Sweetness of Water, Harris has, in a sense, unwritten Gone with the Wind, detonating its phony romanticism, its unearned sympathies, its wretched racism."
The view was exhausting. As a woman of color, Wynne knows the Hollywood deck is stacked against her, so she's perfected the art of keeping tight control of her public image. Should scandal erupt, like her ex having a public meltdown, she calls in her longtime friend Leo to play her on-again, off-again boyfriend. It's mutually beneficial. Their PDA shifts the headlines back in Wynne's favor, and Leo uses the good press to draw attention away from his dysfunctional family. Except this time, on the French Riviera, something's off. A shocking secret from Leo's past surfaces, and the validity of their relationship, both personally and professionally, is thrown into question. Now they must finally confront the complexities of this relationship, and Wynne is forced to consider what is more important to her, her rising career or a very risky shot at real love. Written by a married couple, this book is a delicious summer cocktail of humor, glamour, romance, and beautiful prose.
All the Lonely People is a funny and moving meditation on love, race, old age, and friendship, and it will charm and uplift you. This book also reminds readers of the power ordinary people have to make an extraordinary difference. We meet Hubert Bird, a Jamaican immigrant in London. He's recently retired, and he's totally feeding a web of lies to his daughter during their daily phone calls. Hubert tells his daughter that his life is perfect, he's got friends, he's having fun. But the sad truth is he hasn't left the house, and none of this is true. Then his daughter decides she's coming to visit, and Hubert realizes he has to find a way to make his lies a reality. Along the way, Hubert stumbles across a second chance at love, renews a cherished friendship, and finds himself roped into an audacious community plan that seeks to end loneliness once and for all. This is especially touching as we begin, hopefully, to see the other side of the pandemic. The author Mike Gale uses his own experience as the child of Jamaican immigrants in the UK to create vivid and empathetic characters. You have my reading word. This is a wonderful choice for book clubs who enjoyed A Man Called Ove, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and one of my favorites, The Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen. A reading group guide will be available.
Fans of Josie Silver and Rebecca Searle will devour The Rehearsals, Annette Christie's romantic debut novel about a couple who call off their wedding after a disastrous rehearsal dinner, only to wake up the next morning trapped in a time loop together. Megan Givens and Tom Prescott are heading into what is supposed to be their magical wedding weekend on beautiful San Juan Island. But with two difficult families, 10 years of history, and all too many secrets, things quickly go wrong. After a disastrous rehearsal dinner, they vow to call the whole thing off, only to wake up the next morning stuck together in a time loop. Are they really destined to relive the worst day of their lives over and over? and what happens if their wedding day does arrive. Funny and big-hearted, The Rehearsals imagines what we might do if given a second chance at life and at love, and what it means to finally get both right.
Wildwood Whispers invites you into the Appalachian Mountains, where an enchanting tale of magic and dark secrets unfolds when a young woman travels to a small Virginia mountain town to bury her best friend. Mel Smith grew up hard, bouncing between abusive foster homes with only Sarah Ross as her constant. When Sarah dies in a suspicious car accident, Mel travels to the Appalachian town of Morgan's Gap to scatter Sarah's ashes in her family's garden. Mel finds an unexpected new home in Morgan's Gap, and she's promptly taken in by the local herbalist known as Granny. But there's darkness lurking in the woods at the edge of town. When an oppressive cult tries to threaten the peace Mel has finally found, she must learn to harness her burgeoning power and fight back. Willa Reese beautifully weaves fantasy, feminism, and mystery in rural Appalachia. This book is both a contemporary fairy tale and a slow-burning romance. Perfect for fans of Louisa Morgan and Constance Sayers, you will love this walk through the wild woods.
The Riviera House. Happy to be talking to all of you about Natasha Lester. Forever first published Natasha's The Paris Seamstress in September of 2018. The Riviera House will be the fourth book we publish, and it follows The Paris Orphan and The Paris Secret. These novels all stand alone, however, each comes with a promise. The promise to be completely transposed by the storyline and the setting. Natasha throws herself into research and brings her worlds alive vividly. One of my book clubs read The Paris Secret, which features British female pilots in World War II. This got starred reviews from Publishers Weekly and Booklist. We had a terrifically rewarding discussion, and I'll be honest, we all wanted to be fighter pilots afterwards. And now we have The Riviera House. A woman unearths a renowned painting stolen during World War II and discovers her lost heritage in this engrossing tale of love and heartbreak. We move back and forth in time between the museum and art scene of Paris in 1939 and the present-day French Riviera. The novel explores a fictionalized account of resistance spies and the Nazi theft of valuable artwork that occurred during World War II in occupied France. A robust reading guide will contain discussion questions and an essay about Natasha's research. Natasha joined Hachette for our 9th book club brunch last October, virtually from Australia. For those of you who attended that event, you got to see for yourself what a mighty wonder Natasha is. Her new book is perfect for fans of Kate Quinn and Pam Jenoff.
Set in the decades between the two world wars, The Memoirs of Stockholm Sven is the captivating story of one man who banishes himself to a solitary life in the Arctic Circle. In 1916, Sven Ormsson leaves a restless life in Stockholm to seek adventure in Svalbard, an Arctic archipelago where darkness reigns 4 months of the year, and where he might witness the splendor of the northern lights one night and be attacked by a polar bear the next. But his time as a miner there ends when an avalanche nearly kills him, leaving him disfigured. Sven flees even further, to an uninhabited fjord. There, with the company of a loyal dog, he builds a hut and lives alone, testing himself against the elements. Years into his routine isolation, the arrival of an unlikely visitor salves his loneliness, sparking a chain of surprising events that will bring Sven into a family of fellow cast-offs and determine the course of the rest of his life. Written in prose as breathtaking as the stark landscape it evokes, this book is a testament to the strength of our human bonds, reminding us that even in the most inhospitable conditions on the planet, we are not beyond the reach of love.
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Anderson from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and I'm going to share with you some of our picks for your book clubs this coming summer and into the fall. So I'm going to start with a memoir out on May 18th called Punch Me Up to the Gods by Brian Broom. This is a memoir that everyone at HMH is just so in love with. We're putting everything we have behind it. Brian is such an incredible talent. This is his story of growing up knowing that he was gay, of dealing with addiction, and of being a Black man in this country. It's his story. We follow Brian from childhood through to adulthood, but he opens every chapter with him observing a little Black boy sitting across from him on a city bus, and just seeing the ways that this little boy is being taught the same things that he was taught while he was growing up about what masculinity should look like, about women and how to treat them, about love, about his own Blackness. And it's just such a powerful way to kind of frame the story. And Brian is just a huge talent. Like I said, he's an incredible writer. We have a blurb in from Augustin Burroughs, which is remarkable in itself. And I actually want to read some of that blurb. Punch Me Up to the Gods is some of the finest writing I have ever encountered, and one of the most electrifying, powerful, simply spectacular memoirs I or you have ever read. It is a masterpiece of a memoir, and Brian Broom should win the Pulitzer Prize for writing it. I am in absolute awe, and you will be too. If that's not a pitch, I don't know what is. And from his lips to the Pulitzer Board's ears. Okay, on to Yes, Daddy by Jonathan Parks Ramage, which is a gothic, literary, queer suspense mashup set in the Hamptons, and is for fans of books like The Perfect Nanny. Our protagonist, Jonah, is a young, unsuccessful playwright living in New York City, and he becomes involved with an older man, and he takes him to the Hamptons for the summer and shows Jonah a whole new world of fancy dinners and elegant friends and wealth and lavish homes. But Jonah soon realizes that there is something sinister kind of lurking underneath it all. And the events of the summer come to a boil with an ending that you will not forget. I love, love, love this package. It is so perfect for summer. I hope everyone is reading this page turner by the pool in their own little pink float. And this comes out May 18th. Next is Rachel to the Rescue by Eleanor Lippman. This is a book that could only come out now, and I say that because it is typical, charming Ellie Lippman romantic comedy meets political satire, and it just happens to take place around the Trump White House. So our protagonist, Rachel, is working in the White House Office of Records Management, where her job is to literally tape back together the documents that the president has torn up. And Ellie based this on a real job that actually existed in the Trump administration. Until one day, Rachel is fired after she makes some disparaging remarks about the president in a reply all incident. And so as she's leaving the White House after she's fired, she's hit by a car. And throughout the rest of the novel, Rachel pieces together that the woman who hit her was speeding on her way to visit the president with whom she was involved. So this is fiction. This is what Ellie does so well. It is hilarious and wacky, and she writes these characters that you just want to be best friends with. There's romance, there's a happy ending, and I think that there is so much to talk about in this book, obviously, but really it's just a good time. And this is out in paperback original on July 13th. Next is The Very Nice Box by queer BFF writing duo Eve Gleichman and Laura Blackett. This is biting, satirical. You think it's a rom-com and then it takes a dark turn. It's for readers of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine and Severance. So basically a young woman, Ava, who is an engineer at an IKEA-like company in Brooklyn, is very much a loner. She disagrees with the team bonding aspects of her company's credo. And then she gets a new boss, Matt, and he takes a very strong interest in her. He's like hell-bent on getting to know her. And Ava finally lets her walls down. And you think, great, she's falling in love. She deserves this. But of course, Matt is not who he says he is. And Ava finally comes to that shocking realization at the end of the book, and this has one of the most satisfying endings that I have ever read. This comes out July 6th. Now on to The Redemption of Bobby Love by Cheryl and Bobby Love. The love story was actually shared on Humans of New York. It was shared over a series of 11 posts that got hundreds of thousands of likes and comments, and people were really on the edge of their seats. So the story is that Bobby Love, who grew up in North Carolina, was a victim of the same cycle that so many Black men find themselves in. And he ended up in prison with a decades-long sentence, and he realizes that he can escape. And so he does. He escapes prison. And he flees to New York City. He gives himself a new name and just builds a new life for himself. He meets Cheryl. They fall in love. They have 4 kids. He's a pillar of the community. He's a deacon at his church. And then one day, 38 years later, the FBI knock on his door and they take him back to jail. So this is the story of him and his wife's their love story. They are still so very much in love, and it's really a call for prison reform and for a new understanding of growing up Black in this country. And it asks you to think about, how his community in New York benefited from him being there and what they would have missed out on had he stayed in prison. This book is just so good. It is like action-packed, and it is a call for justice all wrapped up in a love story. It's just so great. And this is out on October 5th. So last up is When Two Feathers Fell from the Sky by Margaret Verbal. Margaret is an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and she writes about the Cherokee people in all of her books. And all of her books have these amazing female protagonists, and this book is no different. So we follow Two Feathers, who is a horse diver at a zoo/amusement park in Nashville in the 20s. So if you remember that movie, Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, this is for you. So we meet Two, we meet her friends, we meet the owner of the zoo, we meet the handsome vet who is literally haunted by memories of his time in World War I. And there are some strange things happening at the zoo. The animals are falling sick, Two has a stalker, and all of these characters are dealing with their own internal struggles and their own kind of stories, and Margaret just brings every character and every storyline together in the most entertaining and enjoyable ride. And this is out on October 12th. So that is it for me. We have so many more amazing book club picks on our website too, hmhbooks.com, or you can follow us on social media at hmhbooks. All of the books that I talked about will have discussion guides. You can find those on our website. There might be a cocktail recipe or two there. Thank you so much and enjoy your summers. It's finally here.
Hello, my name is Colleen Nuccio, and I'm so excited to be here today to present you with 6 new amazing novels from Random House. In this sweeping sophomore novel from a singular talent, A Nook Aru Progressum, A Passage North follows a young man's journey into Sri Lanka's war-torn north. This novel opens as Krishan learns of the death of his grandmother's caretaker via telephone call. As Krishan makes the long journey by train from Colombo into the war-torn northern province for the funeral, so begins an astonishing passage into the innermost reaches of a country. At once a powerful meditation on absence and longing, as well as an unsparing account of the legacy of Sri Lanka's 30-year civil war, this journey lays bare the imprints of the island's past, in what Anthony Morrow calls a novel of tragic power and uncommon beauty, and Paul Yoon describes as both an elegy and a love song, a perfect reading experience. Written with precision and grace, A Passage North is a searing novel of longing, loss, and the legacy of war. For fans of The Farewell, this graceful and incredible debut about love, grief, and family asks, how do you grieve if your family doesn't talk about feelings? Told through the perspective of an unnamed narrator whose father stays in Hong Kong while the rest of the family immigrates to Canada, Ghost Forest is a slim novel that envelops the reader in joy and sorrow. Fung writes with a poetic and haunting voice, layering detail and abstraction, leaving memory and oral history to paint a moving portrait of a Chinese-Canadian astronaut family. From the prize-winning author of The Beekeeper of Aleppo, Songbirds is a stunning novel about the disappearance of a Sri Lankan nanny and how the most vulnerable people find their voices. Inspired by the real-life disappearance of domestic workers in Cyprus, Christy Lefteri has crafted a poignant, deeply empathetic narrative of the human stories behind the headlines. With infinite tenderness and skill, Songbirds offers a triumphant story of the fight for truth and justice and of women reclaiming their lost voices. Readers of Laura Lippman, Lisa Jewell, and Megan Miranda will love Laura McHugh's new thriller, What's Done in Darkness. 5 years after reappearing alongside a highway in a blood-stained dress after being snatched by a masked man in a cornfield, Sarah Beth is struggling to keep her past buried when investigator Nick Farrow calls. Convinced that her case is connected to a strikingly similar disappearance of another young girl, Farrow wants Sarah Beth's help, and he'll do whatever it takes to get it, even if that means dragging her back to the last place she wants to go, the hills and hollers of home, to face her estranged family and all of her deepest fears. In this riveting new novel from Laura McHugh, blood ties and buried secrets draw a young woman back into the nightmare of her past to save a missing girl, unaware of what awaits her in the darkness. Where the Grass is Green and the Girls Are Pretty is a sassy new novel from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Devil Wears Prada and When Life Gives You Lululemons. A seat at the anchor desk of the most watched morning show, recognized by millions, an adoring husband, and a Princeton-bound daughter. Peyton is that woman. She has it all. Sky, her sister, is a stay-at-home mom living in a glitzy suburb of New York. She has degrees from all the right schools and can helicopter parent with the best of them. But Sky is different from the rest and dreams of a life beyond the PTA and pickup. Max, Peyton's bright and quirky 17-year-old daughter, is poised to kiss her fancy private school goodbye and head off to pursue her dreams in film. She's waited her entire life for this opportunity. One little lie, that's all it takes for the illusion to crack, resentments to surface, and for the grass to suddenly not look so green. This book is about sisters, their perfect lives, and their perfect lies. #1 bestselling author Jodi Picoult is back with a moving novel, Wish You Were Here, about the resilience of the human spirit in a moment of crisis. Diana had a schedule for her career and her love life, and it was all right on track before a virus that felt worlds away appeared in New York City and changed everything the night before the trip of a lifetime. Encouraged to go on by her surgical resident boyfriend who has to stay behind, Diana's dream vacation in the Galapagos goes awry almost immediately. Stranded until the world opens back up again, Diana finds herself examining her relationships, her choices, and herself, and wondering if when she goes home, she will have evolved into someone completely different. If you're looking for more recommendations, join Random House Book Club. You can join by subscribing to our weekly newsletter or following us on Goodreads or Facebook. Go to randomhousebookclub.com to learn more.
Hi, my name is Hannah Schaefer, and I manage Book Club Favorites, Simon & Schuster's book club program. Today, my colleague and I will be sharing 6 titles perfect for book club discussions. Those titles are The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris, We Are Not Like Them by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza, The Forest of Vanishing Stars by Kristen Harmel, Falling by T.J. Newman, The Book of Magic by Alice Hoffman, and Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. The first book that I'm sharing today is one I am thrilled to talk about, The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris, a propulsive and gripping novel about the tension that arises when 2 young Black women meet in the starkly white world of New York City publishing. This novel, which comes out in June, is a totally original story that left me completely reeling by the end. It follows a young editorial assistant named Nella, the only Black employee at Wagner Books. That is, until Hazel arrives. Nella is thrilled, but just as the 2 women become friendly and start exchanging natural hair care regimens, Nella also notices changes in the office. Hazel is quickly becoming the office darling, and Nella starts to feel left behind. And then the letters start arriving, threatening, anonymous notes telling Nella to leave Wagner now. Over time, Hazel continues to win favor of Nella's friends and coworkers, and Nella starts to wonder if she might be behind the notes. As the sinister forces around her grow, so does Nella's obsession, and soon she realizes that more than her career is at stake. This is an electric debut. It's full of twists and turns and smart commentary on diversity in the workplace that anyone who's ever felt manipulated or outmaneuvered, threatened, or overlooked will absolutely love. The next book that I'm excited to talk about is an incredibly compelling and poignant drama about the enduring power of female friendship. We Are Not Like Them by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza follows 2 women, one white and one Black, whose close bonds are tested after a tragic event. Jen and Riley have always been best friends, but as adults, they've gone in slightly different directions. Jen is married and pregnant, and Riley is a successful television journalist, poised to become her network's first Black female anchor. When Jen's husband, a white police officer, is involved in the shooting of an unarmed Black man, Jen's life and friendship are thrown into uncertainty. Riley is sent to cover the story, and she struggles with the implications of this tragic event on her Black community, her career ambitions, and her friendship with Jen. Told from alternating perspectives, this is a truly riveting story about race in America today, the devastating impact it can have on everyone's lives, the struggles and strengths of lifelong friendship. It's an utterly profound, truly moving story, perfect for fans of The Vanishing Half and Leave the World Behind. I'm so excited for this to be out in the world and for people to read this incredibly powerful story this October. And the last book I'm going to talk about today before throwing to my colleague is The Forest of Vanishing Stars, the latest captivating story by New York Times bestselling author Kristen Harmel. Set in the Slavic wilderness and featuring an incredible female character, this World War II novel, based on true events, is full of suspense, survival, and heart. A young woman named Yona has lived alone in the dark Eastern European wilderness for years, after being kidnapped from her German parents as a child and raised in the woods. One day in 1941, she comes across a group of Jewish refugees fleeing the Nazis, and she vows to teach them how to survive in the forest. But just as she begins to open up to others, someone betrays her, so she escapes into a nearby German-occupied village. There, a shocking revelation about her past comes to light, and her past and her present collide, and it could change everything. This gripping and evocative story is one that will capture your heart right from the first page. Keep an eye out for this one. It publishes this July. And now I'll throw to my colleague who will take you through the next 3 books that we are excited for book clubs to read this year.
Hi, I'm Holly, the marketing coordinator for Simon & Schuster's Book Club Favorites, and I had a few more titles that I wanted to share with you all. First up, we are all so excited to announce that Anthony Doerr, the award-winning author of All the Light We Cannot See, is back again with another brilliant piece of literary fiction. Cloud Cuckoo Land is for all of us. It's for the lovers of libraries and the lovers of reading. It is told from 5 separate points of view across 3 different time periods: the 1453 siege of Constantinople, a public library in present-day Idaho, and an interstellar ship traveling through space decades from now. And between all these narratives, Doerr weaves this ancient text of Aethon, who is longing to be turned into a bird and fly off to a utopian society. This is just an incredibly imaginative story that talks about the power of hope and the endurance of stories, and it really just reads like a beautiful work of art. And I can't wait for it to hit the shelves this September. And next up, we have Falling by T.J. Newman. This book takes place on an aircraft where an unexpected chaos is taking place. The pilot, Bill, is being faced with this terrible decision to crash the plane that he is flying with all these passengers aboard, or choose the death of his wife and children who are being held captive by terrorists. And chaos is already erupting in the back of the plane while Bill is trying to comprehend this chaotic decision that he is being faced with, and so begins this incredibly intense thriller. Falling is action-packed, it is fast-paced, and it really dives into the backstory behind everyone involved, including some of the terrorist plans. And while the plot of the story is incredibly terrifying, I can guarantee that you will not be able to put this book down. There is so much to appreciate about this story, and I just know that it's going to be a hit thriller this summer, so be sure to look out for it this July. And last but not least, we have The Book of Magic. Alice Hoffman is back with her final story about the Owens family, bringing us to the end of her Practical Magic series. And I know this is a beloved series on so many of our shelves, which is why I am so excited to talk about it today. The curse of the Owens family is still as tragic as ever. When the death beetle sounds, that means the person that the Owens family is in love with is about to die. And in this particular story, in this frantic attempt to save one man's life, 3 generations of the Owens family come together to bring their magical powers and try to break this curse. They travel from Paris to London and into the English countryside, where their historic ancestor, Maria Owens, practiced magic for her very first time. And all along the way, these women are uncovering dark secrets, they are discovering truths about themselves, and they are really just learning the lengths at which they would go to for the one that they love, which is what the Practical Magic series is all about. The Book of Magic is the brilliant and magical conclusion that we have all been waiting for, and I just can't wait for everyone to read it this October. Thank you all for listening, and for more book club recommendations and all your book club resources, and to learn how to join our club, be sure to check out book club favorites at simonandschuster.com/bookclubs. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Alexa Waco from Soho Press, Soho Crime, and Soho Teen, and today I'm going to be talking about some of our most exciting titles. First up, we have The Bombay Prince. I hope many of you are familiar with Sujata Massey's fantastic Agatha and Edgar award-winning Perveen mystery series set in 1920s Bombay, India. The Bombay Prince is the third and highly anticipated installment of that series. This incredible, rich historical mystery follows Bombay solicitor Perveen Mystery, a character based on India's first real female lawyer, Cornelia Sarabji. As a woman, Perveen finds herself in delicate situations that the police either ignore or don't have access to. In The Bombay Prince, Perveen is compelled to bring justice to the family of a murdered female Parsi student, just as Bombay's streets erupt in riots to protest British rule. At the beginning of the novel, Perveen Mystery isn't surprised when local unrest over the arrival of the Prince of Wales spirals into riots in the streets. But she's horrified by the death of Frenny Cuttingmaster, a young Parsi student who falls from the second floor gallery just as the prince's procession is passing by her college. Frenny had recently come in for legal consultation, and what she confided convinces Perveen that her death was not an accident. Perveen steps forward to assist Frenny's family in the fraught dealings of the coroner's inquest. Meanwhile, Bombay is erupting. Can Perveen help a suffering family when her own is in danger? Even if you're not a mystery fan, I would recommend this as an accessible and rich historical read. Next, we have another incredible mystery, that's Clark and Division by Naomi Hirahara. Set in 1944 Chicago, Edgar Award winner Naomi Hirahara's new mystery is a poignant exploration of the after effects of the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans. It follows 20-year-old Aki Ito and her parents, who have just been released from Manzanar, where they were detained by the US government in the aftermath or during the war. Their life in California, they find, is completely gone, eviscerated. Instead, they are being resettled 2,000 miles away in Chicago, where Aki's older sister Rose was moved to the new Japanese American neighborhood near Clark and Division Streets. But on the eve of the Ito's family reunion, Rose is killed by a train. Aki is absolutely stunned. Officials quickly rule Rose's death a suicide, but Aki's instincts tell her that there is more to the story and she is the only person who can find the truth. And so that is her attempt to do so. Inspired by historical events, Clark and Division infuses an atmospheric and heartbreakingly real crime fiction plot with rich period details and delicately wrought personal stories that Naomi Hirahara has gleaned from 30 years of research and archival work in Japanese American history. Clark and Division has received so much well-deserved praise already from many literary luminaries, including Attica Locke, Michael Connolly, Sarah Paretsky, and even George Takei. This is absolutely a must-read for crime fans and historical fiction fans alike. After that, we have another very compelling crime read, which is The House of Ashes by Stuart Neville. Stuart Neville is often known as the King of Belfast Noir. He has been recognized by too many accolades to name, among them the Los Angeles Times Book Prize and the Edgar, McCavity, and Anthony Awards. His upcoming novel, The House of Ashes, is a psychological thriller perfect for fans of Gillian Flynn and Tana French, and I don't make those comparisons lightly. That is a well-deserved comparison for Stuart. The House of Ashes is a haunting story of a Northern Irish murder 60 years buried, and yes, there is also a ghost. The story follows Sarah, whose husband Damien has moved them to his native Northern Ireland for what he has deemed a fresh start in the wake of Sarah's nervous breakdown. Sarah, though, who knows no one in Northern Ireland, is jobless, carless, friendless, and soon realizes that she has become a prisoner in her own house with a man she barely recognizes as her husband. Things take a turn for the worse when one day an old woman beats on the door and insisting the house is hers before being swept back to her care facility. The interaction rattles Sarah, who also has begun to experience the hints of a haunting, including mysterious bloodstains on the floor that appear and disappear. So Sarah begins to unearth the house's terrible history. As the two women, Mary, the older woman who appeared at the door, form a bond over their shared traumas, Sarah finds the strength to stand up to her abusive husband, and Mary, who has been silent for 6 decades in a dual POV, is finally ready to tell the story of what happened to her in this house. While chilling, The House of Ashes is a gorgeous portrait of violence and also resilience with subtle layers of Irish history built in. So that is The House of Ashes by Stuart Neville. Next, we have a literary novel, an adult literary novel called Blueskin Gods. Blueskin Gods is the upcoming novel from S.J. Sindhu, the author of Marriage of a Thousand Lies, a novel which won the Publishing Triangle Edmund White Debut Fiction Award and was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award, as well as an ALA Stonewall Honor Book. Blueskin Gods is a groundbreaking novel about faith, identity, and finding one's path, and an excellent book club pick, if I do say so myself. This is a story of Kalki, born with blue skin in Tamil Nadu, India, who has been raised to believe that he is the 10th reincarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu and can perform miracles, which he does. But when his aunt falls ill and his powers fails him, Kalki discovers the truth, that he has been brought up in a lie and his father has been cashing in, swindling millions because of Kalki's miracles. Kalki must face the facts that he's not a god, but a fraud, and find his true place in the world, which is the true work of this very moving and poignant novel. As a young man, he travels from his ashram in India to the United States, where he plays in the band Blueskin Gods and attempts to come to terms with his true identity and find his place in the world. S.J. Sindhu is incredible at writing stories of identity and self-discovery, making them both internal and moving and poignant, especially when it comes to complex questions that involve faith, nationality, and queerness, spaces that Kalki navigates while figuring out who he is. In the words of Roxane Gay, which I want to leave you with about this novel, the richness of the story will take hold of you and never let go. So that is Blueskin Gods by S.J. Sindhu. Next up, really quickly, I want to talk about some of our paperback picks. The first one is This Time Next Year We'll Be Laughing by the New York Times bestselling author of the Maisie Dobbs series, Jacqueline Winspear. It is a deeply personal memoir of her family's resilience in the face of war and privation. It tackles such difficult family memories as her paternal grandfather's shell shock, her mother's evacuation from London during the Blitz, and her own childhood working on farms in rural Kent. It is a heartfelt portrayal of post-war England we rarely see, and of working class indomitability. It is rooted in the durability of strength of the human spirit and makes for the perfect book club choice for this reason. It does feel perfectly suited for our times. Next up, we have 3 Hours in Paris, which is our smash hit of the year and written by author Cara Black, who is well known for her Amy LeDuc mystery series. This is set in Paris during the Nazi occupation and speculates about a fascinating historical point. It is well documented that Hitler came to Paris only once during the German occupation and only spent 3 hours in the City of Light before abruptly leaving for an unknown reason. The reason imagined here is that an American riflewoman named Kate Reese attempted to assassinate the Fuhrer on a covert Allied mission. Widowed Kate, who lost her husband and child in a German bombing, has good reason to take up the mission when she's recruited by a British spy network, but her assassination attempt quickly fails, and she realizes that it was all a setup. But by who and why? The cat and mouse stories continues across Paris as Kate fights for her life. This thrilling read is another great book club pick. Lastly, we are staying in Paris for another thrilling romantic adventure, this time by New York Times bestselling author Samira Ahmed, Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know. Told in alternating narratives that bridge centuries and continents, it follows 2 young Muslim women fighting to write their own stories. Specifically, in the contemporary plotline, it follows Khayyam, who is searching for a Raven Trust lady who appears in the work of Dumas, Delacroix, and Lord Byron, and who may have been erased from history. 200 years earlier, Layla, that real Raven Trust woman, is struggling to survive and keep her true love hidden from the Pasha who has gifted her with favored status in his harem. Their lives intertwine, and as one woman's long-forgotten life is uncovered, another's is transformed. If you like smashing the patriarchy while enjoying a delicious French pastry, this book is for you. And that is it for me today. Again, that is Alexa Waco from Soho Press, Soho Crime, and Soho Teen. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Hello everybody, my name is Valerie Pierce and I'm the Retail Marketing Director at Sourcebooks. Before I start on my books, I have to say a huge thank you to Carol Fitzgerald. She has done it again. She has wrangled all of us publishers together so that we can talk about our most discussable books for summer and fall. So huge thank you to Carol and Austin at the Book Reporter. Thank you so much for everything that you do. You guys make it look easy, but I think we all know it's not quite as easy as it looks. All right, so let's jump in. My first book is All the Little Hopes by Leah Weiss. Leah Weiss's previous book was If the Creek Don't Rise, which was an Indie Next pick and a Library Reads pick. And the bar was pretty high for Leah when I picked this book up, and she absolutely astounded me with this one. It was absolutely incredible. So I would say, if you want to know what it's like, it's basically if you take Summer of My German Soldier, Stand By Me, and Nancy Drew, and you throw them in a blender and you whip them all up into a smoothie. That's All the Little Hopes. So the book starts off in a small town in North Carolina during World War II on a honeybee farm. And something I didn't know is that during World War II, the government used beeswax to help keep everything waterproof for the military. So the military has come to this family that has two teenage girls, about 13 years old, and told them, you know, we will provide workers for you, we'll provide extra money if you give us all this beeswax. So one of the things they do to help them out is they send a bunch of German POWs to this little farm in this little town. And as you can imagine, during this time period, that was incredibly difficult for the townspeople. There were a lot of tensions, and it gets even worse when three men suddenly disappear. And these two teenage girls, 13-year-olds, decide, you know, they love Nancy Drew, so they are going to figure out what happened to these three men. And this is just a really great coming-of-age story. And I want to read really quickly a review from one of my favorite Southern fiction authors, Wiley Cash, who is also a really huge fan of this book. He says that it's both a deep dive into the life of North Carolina town during World War II and a national portrait of an era with all its attendant glories and pains. I love this coming-of-age novel. Lucy Brown and Ellie Burt Tucker will break your heart, but Leah Weiss's beautiful writing will sew it back together. So this is All the Little Hopes, and it's coming out in July in trade paper. Next is The Last Mona Lisa by Jonathan Santlofer. This is one I'm a little bit obsessed with right now. I love historical fiction that takes a piece of history that's a little murky, that's like a puzzle missing a couple pieces, and an historical fiction work that fills in those puzzle pieces for us. And that's exactly what The Last Mona Lisa did. I am not an art aficionado, so I personally was not aware that in 1911, a man named Vincenzo Peruggia stole the Mona Lisa and had it for 2 years before returning it. So that was news to me, and the fact that we don't really know for sure what his exact motives may have been, and that we don't really know for sure if the Mona Lisa in the Louvre is in fact the real Mona Lisa, was even more fascinating to me. So that's exactly what this book is about. It's about this man's great-grandson who discovers that Vincent Peruggia created a journal that had been long lost for many years. He's come to Italy. He's going to try and find it and find out what really happened in 1911. But what he doesn't know is that there are art thieves and villains that are willing to kill for this journal, that there's an Interpol agent who is trying to launch his career and wants to find this journal to help him do so. There's also a mysterious, beautiful woman with motives of her own that are very unclear for most of the novel. So it's this really fascinating story that you get to learn a lot about art, you get to learn about the Mona Lisa, about the history of it, and then you get this really fun thriller on top of it that's just, you know, edge of your seat, page turner, that's incredibly well written. So this is coming out in August in trade paper and hardcover, so you can have it in any format that you want. And this is another one with amazing author reviews. Michael Connelly, Ruth Ware, Megan Abbott. So many people are loving this book. You will love it too. Make sure to pick this one up. Next up, we're going to go into In Every Mirror She's Black. This is the quintessential book club book for the fall. It is heavily layered, it is fascinating, it is extraordinarily well written, and I'm gonna read really fast another review for this book. It's by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who wrote Daisy Jones and the Six. She put, In Every Mirror She's Black is a wise and complicated exploration of the lives of 3 Black women in America and Sweden. Lola Aiken-Maid Akerstrom offers a sharply written story with messy, deeply moving characters, raising brutal questions that will stick with you long after you've turned the last page. So this book focuses on 3 very different Black women. One is an executive, one is a former model, and one is a Somali refugee, who are all interconnected really because of this wealthy white man in Sweden. They don't necessarily know each other at the beginning, but eventually their lives do intersect. Devastating is a word I would use for this novel. It really showcases how these women are struggling against a system that doesn't want to give them the credit or the success that they deserve and that they earn. And again, this is just one of those heavily layered books that everyone is going to be discussing in the fall. So make sure to pick this one up. It's coming out in September in hardcover. Next up is Dark Things I Adore. This is a thriller. And I don't usually like to compare books to Gone Girl because it is such a well-known, huge book. But I would say the main character in Dark Things I Adore definitely rivals Amazing Amy from Gone Girl for most ingenious revenge seeker. So this book really focuses on two people. There's an art professor who has used women in really the most horrible way. He engages in relationships with them, he makes them think that he loves them, and then he wages psychological warfare on them. He breaks them down until they're a shadow of their former selves, until they finally break. And that's when he immortalizes them in his paintings and gets all of the praise and accolades for that and leaves them behind. So a woman who's connected to one of these people that he's abused has decided that she's had enough, and she has spent years infiltrating his life and has now gotten him up to a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and she's going to wage some psychological warfare of her own. So this is a really thrilling read. You don't know how it's going to go or how it's going to end, and I highly recommend, if you want a great thriller, pick this one up. This is coming out in September in hardcover. I have two more books that I want to talk about quickly. The first is Love, Chai, and Other Four-Letter Words. This is a really great, fresh new love story. It's the beginning of a new series that features four best friends of Indian descent living in New York City, trying to find love and trying to figure out how to live their life. In this first one, we're introduced to Kieran, and she's at a really difficult time in her life. Her sister married somebody that her parents didn't really approve of, and it tore her family apart. So she's decided that she is going to marry someone her parents love. But of course, that's not quite what ends up happening. She falls for someone that's not someone they entirely approve of. So that book is coming out in October in trade paper. And last but not least, I have very little time left, is The Vanishing Days by Susanna Kearsley. If you've not read a Susanna Kearsley, you have to go read her. It is a companion to The Winter's Sea. You don't have to read them in succession. You can read them as standalones, but she is one of the most beautiful writers. If you love books about Scotland, if you want to feel like you were actually in Scotland right now, go read a Susanna Kearsley book. That is The Vanishing Days, and is coming out in October. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations, and I hope I get to hear from all of you soon about which books you're most excited about. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Hi, I'm Ann Zangri, Senior Manager, Marketing Services at Ingram Content Group. We're thrilled to present upcoming titles from independent publishers distributed by Publishers Group West, Two Rivers Distribution, and Ingram Publisher Services.
Hi, I'm Josh Bodwell, the Editorial Director of Godine, and we're thrilled to be publishing Simon Van Boy's new novel, Night Came with Many Stars. Here to talk about the book is the author himself.
Night Came with Many Stars is the story of one family in rural Kentucky over many generations, about 100 years, from about 1925 to, I suppose, the present day. I've known this family that I wrote about since for the last 30 years, so this story has really been a long time in the making. As I've grown as a writer, I've developed certain skills that I didn't have that allowed me to tell parts of the story. So most of it is based on the history of this family, and the other parts I had to sort of instinctually make up to link the things that I didn't know or they told me about. So I really hope you like it, because I've poured all my heart into this, and I think it really tells the story of America in many ways. Thank you.
Happy reading.
I'm Cindy Spiegel from Spiegel Grau, distributed by Two Rivers, and I'm excited to share with you our first book as an independent publisher, Fox and I by Catherine Raven, the story of a solitary woman's friendship with a wild fox. A former National Parks Ranger with a PhD in biology, Catherine Raven built a cottage off the grid in Montana with nature and books as her only companions. So when a fox began showing up every day at 4:15, it seemed only natural for her to bring her camping chair outside, sit as close to him as she dared, and read to him from The Little Prince. After all, how do you speak to a fox? So began a 4-year friendship. The fox walked with her, brought her his prey, and later his pups who frolicked in the moonlight as she babysat them while Fox napped. She'd been taught not to anthropomorphize animals, but it became clear to her that Fox had a personality and that he was, in fact, her friend. We're so excited to share this book with you, a story with an original voice and perspective that feels so relevant at a time when all of us have experienced solitude. Think of books like H is for Hawk, Braiding Sweetgrass, Wild. In fact, Helen McDonald just agreed to be in conversation with Kathy for a bookstore event, and we have blurbs from Temple Grandin, Yann Martel, Ian Fraser, and others. We hope you'll love this extraordinary story as much as we do.
I Will Die in a Foreign Land is a story about human resilience and love during a period of violence and upheaval. It is the English patient set in Ukraine during the 2013 protests that led to the deaths of 100 people in the Ukrainian Revolution. The book follows 4 characters during the protests, one of whom is Alexander Ivanovich, a pianist and former member of the Soviet military. Alexander's character is inspired by a real person known as the piano extremist, a man who wore a balaclava and played the piano for protesters, never revealing his identity. As a child, Alexander's piano teacher taught him about the Russian composer Igor Stravinsky and his ballet, The Rite of Spring. When the ballet premiered in Paris in 1913, French audiences were so revolted by what they watched that a riot broke out. This ties into why Alexander, in his old age, is moved to join the protests and to play the piano there, which is the power of art to stir emotions. In an interview with Reuters, the real piano extremist described music as the spirit of the revolution. I Will Die in a Foreign Land is full of this spirit. It is a deeply emotive portrait of human resilience shown through characters who, in the face of traumatic national upheaval, are stirred to action, who through their acts of protest and art are lessons in empathy and pride.
Hi, my name is Leslie Houghton, and I'm the author of The Secret of Rainy Days. It is about friendship, funeral casseroles, and lucky dust. It is set in a small southern town of Erob, Alabama, which is Boer spelled backwards. It is about these 3 childhood friends, Bit, Avery, and Wynne. And when she does, at anything, at everything, her whole damn life. I can't relate. But it's also about Avery, who Bit meets on the saddest day of her life, and she becomes the friend of Bit's heart. Bit just hopes she never has to choose between them. It is, at its core, a meditation on memory and the word home and what they mean to us. But it also asks the question, where is your lucky dust?
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan and I am from the William Morrow marketing team, and I have amazing titles to review with you today, so let's dive right in. You all know her and you love her. She is a book club favorite, an indie bookstore favorite, the one and only Laura Lippman, New York Times bestselling author of Lady in the Lake and Sunburn. Lippman's new novel, Dream Girl, is a dark tale of psychological suspense. So think Misery, think Rear Window. It's all about a novelist who is incapacitated by injury and is currently plagued by mysterious phone calls. Dream Girl is set in Baltimore and is very atmospheric, so it's perfect for contemporary psychological suspense readers. Also, readers of Megan Abbott, Tana French, and Harlan Coben will love this novel. Dream Girl goes on sale June 22nd in hardcover. Next up, we have Island Queen by Vanessa Riley, and can we talk about this cover? It is stunning! Island Queen is a remarkable, sweeping historical novel based on the incredible true life story of Dorothy Kirwan Thomas, a free woman of color who rose from slavery to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful landowners in the colonial West Indies. This is a timely and compelling story that is perfect for book clubs. Early readers are actually already raving about this as well. Chanel Cleaton, the best-selling author of The Most Beautiful Girl in Cuba, says it's richly detailed, vividly depicted, and sweeping in scope. She goes on to say, Island Queen is historical fiction at its absolute finest, a stunning must-read. Island Queen goes on sale from William Morrow on July 6th in hardcover. The next novel on our list is one I am personally very excited about, so if you were a fan of Hidden Figures, listen up. Our next novel is Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson. This is a debut historical fiction novel that reveals the untold true story of the 6th AAA, the only all-Black battalion of the Women's Army Corps who made the dangerous voyage to Europe to ensure American servicemen received word from their loved ones during World War II. This is easily a must-read for those who have read and loved and seen the movie Hidden Figures. There is honestly impeccable historical research here as well. Kaya has done an incredible amount of research into what life was like for the women, particularly Black women, back in the 1940s, because so little research has been previously done about 6th AAA. Museums and army bases were eager to give her as much access as possible, access to their collections to have this story come to life. She'll have a robust back of the book essay as well that will include some of her most interesting findings. Sisters in Arms is going to be available in paperback on August 3rd from William Morrow. Next on our list is The Last Checkmate by Gabriela Saab. Author Gabriela Saab has created a heart-pounding, emotional story of a Polish resistance fighter who must return to Auschwitz to find justice for her family's deaths. This is historical debut fiction perfect for fans of Martha Hall Kelly's Lilac Girls, the 1980 classic Playing for Time, way back, and those who fell in love with The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. This is real history here as well. The story is based on the real-life Polish movement against the Nazis and the Auschwitz prisoner resistance movement. The Last Checkmate is actually on our fall list, and it'll be available in paperback on October 19th. If there is one novel to be extremely excited about on our list, this next one is certainly it. That is All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. I have to show off the package here for you. And yes, as you can see the symbol there, this is our fall 2021 lead read at HarperCollins. So, All Her Little Secrets is a fast-paced legal thriller by Atlanta lawyer Wanda M. Morris, based on her own experiences in the legal system. It's a debut mystery about a Black lawyer who gets in over her head when her boss is murdered. Wanda has created a brilliant and twisty mystery that brings the thrills while also addressing racism, sexism, and other issues in past and present America. It's perfect for fans of Attica Locke, Alyssa Cole, Harlan Coben, and then those that love the television show How to Get Away with Murder. We already have an amazing blurbs from Karen Slaughter, Amy Gentry, and the buzz will only continue to build. So definitely check it out. This will be available on November 2nd from William Morrow in paperback format. Our next author certainly needs no introduction. That is New York Times bestselling author Susan Wiggs. And yes, this title might sound familiar because it was previously available in hardcover. That is the Lost and Found Bookshop. This novel tells an incredible, heartwarming story about a woman who loses her mother, but takes on a very financially unstable bookshop based in San Francisco. She's also caring for her grandfather at the time, and her grandfather owns the bookshop, but is unwilling to sell it. So she takes on the challenge herself, and the story takes off from there. This will be available from William Morrow in paperback on June 1st. Next on our list is The Exiles by #1 New York Times bestselling author Christina Baker Klein. And yes, that is the author of Orphan Train, as you may remember her. So in The Exiles, she returns with an ambitious, emotionally resonant novel about 3 women whose lives are bound together in 19th century Australia and the hardships they weather together as they fight for redemption and freedom in new society. So this format is actually the new format in paperback. You likely remember it in hardcover, where it was an instant New York Times bestseller. And now that it's out in paperback, it's going to be perfect for book clubs. So many discussion topics here, everything from racism and misogyny, gender and opportunity. Amazing topics to discuss. This is definitely a novel to pick up once it's available in paperback on July 6th from the Custom House imprint.
Hi everyone, I'm Erin Levitt from Norton's Publicity Department. Thank you for having me back. This is the third video I've done, and I'm thrilled to be a part of Carol's wonderful idea and vision, and I hope that the presentations we offer give you a sense of just how many wonderful books we have coming out, and please feel free to contact me if you want any of them or if you have questions about any of them. The first book I'm going to talk to you about is Akpen's new novel. He is the author of the collection of short stories Say You're One of Them, which many of you may have read when it debuted. It was a mega successful hit. It was an Oprah selection. It won the Commonwealth Prize, the Penn Open Book Award. It ended up selling 800,000 copies in print and is still selling, and that's just incredible for short stories. So when he set out to write his debut novel, which is called New York, My Village, he had to write something different. He knew that he had to challenge himself and do something kind of radically different, although he wanted to still reckon with the devastating effects of ethnic conflict, but he didn't want to dwell on war and tragedy in Africa. So the tone he ends up striking is both comedic and satirical, which is a breath of fresh air at this time when I think we're all searching for more reasons to laugh. The protagonist of the book is a Nigerian intellectual and book editor who comes to New York on a publishing fellowship. So we can all relate to that, somebody who's seeking out a job in publishing. And his sophisticated colleagues meet him with kindness and hospitality, but it's soon exposed that there's a colder, ruthless side to the industry, an underbelly that he wasn't familiar with before. And using this conceit, Akpen seeks to reveal the myriad ways that tribalism affects both his village in Africa and also the villages in New York City and beyond. It's ultimately a hopeful book. The hopefulness is embodied particularly in one of the characters and the daughter of one of the African characters whose intelligence and self-possession and fighting spirit make her a torchbearer for the next generation. And I highly encourage you to read this book. It's New York, My Village, Akpen, following the mega successful hit of Say You're One of Them. So that's coming out in November. The second is a very exciting novel by Richard Powers. He is probably most familiar to you because of his book, The Overstory, which won the Pulitzer. It was a New York Times bestseller, and not only that, it was a #1 New York Times bestseller. It was immensely beloved by critics, by readers, and in fact, I don't know anyone who hasn't read it who hasn't been transformed by it, truly changed by the experience of reading it. It's a very powerful novel and exceptionally well written, and he's just a brilliant storyteller. So his new novel, Bewilderment, features an astrobiologist who's searching for life throughout the cosmos while also raising his unusual 9-year-old named Robin after the death of his wife. Robin's warm and kind and spends hours painting elaborate pictures of endangered animals. But there's something sort of under the surface, and this is revealed when Robin, who's just in 3rd grade, gets in trouble for hurting a friend, and the trouble only progresses as the book goes on. The only hope for this child seems to be an experimental treatment to help him control his emotions, but the treatment involves training the boy to the recorded patterns of his mother's brain, which is obviously very experimental, and something only Richard Powers could create. There's beautiful descriptions in the book of the natural world, visions of life beyond our own, and also at the core of the book is a story about a father and son's ferocious love. If you haven't read Richard Powers, start with this book, Bewilderment. It's coming out this fall. And then I highly encourage you, if you haven't already, to read The Overstory. It's something we're all so proud to have published, and we're thrilled to have Richard Powers on our list. And finally, Mary Roach. This is a galley of her new book, Fuzz. She's the author of 6 best-selling works of nonfiction, including Stiff and Grunt. I've had the immense pleasure of working with her on all of them, and she's just as funny on the page as she is in person. So hopefully at some point, when everything opens up more, you can all meet her at some trade event or somewhere, somehow, because she's just amazing. She's really a force and so original. Her previous books have all been fixated with the human body, whether it was decomposing corpses or bodies orbiting in space or rigorous military training and what happens to the body when we go through this training. Now in her book Fuzz, When Nature Breaks the Law, she's talking about the animal world and what constitutes legal and illegal behavior among animals, which is obviously a kind of quirky twist, but also gets into some interesting ideas about conservation and the environment and climate change. Some of the questions she raises in the book include what happens if a grizzly bear is caught breaking into your cabin? What do we do with a jaywalking moose? Obviously not something we all have to worry about, but she interviews people who are human-elephant conflict specialists and bear managers and different people working at parks and the like, and comes up with some really fascinating, fun theories about what to do with these animal encounters. She travels to places that are leopard infested, to the Himalaya, to St. Peter's Square. So you get to go along with her in a time when none of us can travel. We get to travel with Mary Roach. What could be better? It's ultimately about how our human and animal worlds are colliding in increasingly complicated ways. And thankfully it offers hope for a future compassionate coexistence. And you'll see I intentionally put myself behind my baby cheetahs just to inspire us all to think more about animals and our responsibility to them. So I hope everyone's well, and please do reach out because I miss hearing from everyone. Bye.
Wow, another great group of presentations. Many thanks to our publisher sponsors who gave their heart and soul in their presentations today, and also for their support. Without them, this event would not have been possible. Also, I want to give a big thanks to Austin Rue, our producer, who put together all this footage from all the different publishers and my pieces as well, and did a stellar job. And also for saying, gee, that sounds like a great idea, when I suggested we do a 10th anniversary piece at the beginning. He is just terrific at every single detail that has to go into this event. And also to Tom Donadio, our editorial director, who looked over every presentation and made sure all the presentations were crisp and everything was pulled together in his usual impeccable style. We want to thank you for joining us today as well. Without you, this presentation would just not be possible. And we hope that you found books that you want to discuss, books you want to share, books that you want to just be out there telling people about after this event today. We will plan to be back to you again in November with another presentation. And until then, happy reading. Thanks, everyone.